Hi, friends. Thanks for joining me again for another episode. Today, we're going to be talking all about leads. So, hey, everyone, I'm Pam Durkin. I'm the closing coach for interior designers. And you may be wondering, why am I called the closing coach? Well, I want to tell you a little story. I had a designer who was going to actually lose a project because the client did not want to pay her fee. She really wanted the project and knew it was going to be great and wanted to work with this builder on this project as well to establish a long term relationship with him. And aside from all of that, she really wanted the cash flow. So I helped her work through the exact phrases to say to educate that client on the fee and helping them further understand the importance of her input on that project. And through this, she was able to save it and save the project, and the client happily paid her fee. And this is what I can help you with too. So don't lose a great project because you don't know how to navigate the final phases of the sales process. And I want to remind you about my Luxury Client Academy, which is the 9-month coaching experience that I currently have going on, where I help you triple your income. So, more about the Luxury Client Academy later, but we're going to be getting into all about leads today. So, when I talk to designers all the time and I've asked the question, what are you struggling with? Over 70% of you have said to me, leads. Now, there's a couple things that you're looking for. You need maybe more of them. You want the phone to ring more and hoping someone will say that they're going to pass your name along to a referral. And you're just praying to God that actually happens. Or you're looking for better quality clients. You want those luxury clients that can afford the prices that, a designer charges and all the things that go along with that. Or maybe you're looking for larger projects. So you want to get those bigger jobs, you want to get to the next level in your business, and you want to be in those affluent areas. Well, in order to get better leads, you need to have a system for curating the right ones. You need to know who's a good fit and who is not, because sometimes we have to say no, right? And finally, we need to be able to close them, to take them across the finish line. And this is exactly what we work on in my Luxury Client Academy. We are going to be tripling your profits in 9 months, and you can't do that unless you're closing better projects. And I know you have a lot on your plate. You're running your business, you're working on lots of different parts of your business and handling clients and all the details that go on in interior design projects. So your focus is on many different things. But instead of taking whatever free time you have and listening to bits and bytes from other podcasts, or taking another online course, or reading another book, you can spend the next 9 months with me as I give you the step by step action plan to triple your profits. So I want you to be thinking about the Luxury Client Academy, and I'm going to tell you how to apply for that at the end of this episode. So you may be wondering, as we're talking about leads, like, how can I get more opportunities? And how can I get better opportunities? Well, this is exactly what we're going to be working on in the Luxury Client Academy, and that there's three main parts to curating leads. And one is identifying the right leads. And who is that person? Who is that ideal client? Then it's finding them. And finally, it's closing them. And we're going to be breaking down these three factors in this episode. So the first one we talked about is identifying who's a good fit. The saying that I work with everyone and that everyone should hire a designer is really not a good enough identifier. There's a few factors that we need to be considering when we're thinking about who's going to be a good fit to work with. So one, they have to be willing to want help. So it's not the DIYer who just wants you to pat them on the head and say you're doing a great job. I mean, so many designers that I talk to talk about having clients that really don't want their input, really don't want their help. They don't want them to help them source anything. They literally just want someone that says you're doing a great job. They don't want any changes or anything like that. So they just want a yes man to say you're doing good, you don't need my help, carry on. And none of us, no designer wants to work on those types of projects because we're there to be hired for our expertise, right? So that's the first thing. They have to be willing to want help. The next is they have to be willing to pay for help. And that includes another layer, which is you, the designer. So I know many of you are charging fees and then also working on procurement. So they have to be willing to pay for those two layers of extra service that you're offering to them above and beyond if they were doing it themselves. And then the third thing is they have to be able to afford the level of products that you're going to be selecting for them because you're going to be looking at wholesale products, which can be a much higher level of quality and also price point than going the straight retail route. So, those are three things that have to be there when you're identifying who you should be working with. And in the Luxury Client Academy, this is one of the first items we tackle. We identify who is your ideal client, and we're getting very clear on what that client and project looks like. And that direction really helps set the foundation for all the other things that we're going to do as we're looking to triple your profits and get you better projects. Once we identify who they are, it becomes much easier to find them and then to close them. So the second factor that we need to be talking about is once we know who they are, we have to figure out where they are. So where's the best place to find these types of clients and these types of projects? This is where I see a lot of designers just kind of looking everywhere for the clients and projects they want without even knowing exactly what that looks like. And honestly, it's pretty exhausting and frustrating because they're not focusing their time on the right areas where those great clients and those awesome projects are located. And the problem with that is that they're throwing anything and everything against the wall. So they're just putting out content on social media, they're putting verbiage on their website, or maybe they're going to a local chamber event, but nothing's working, nothing's sticking. And the problem with that is they're not being specific enough. So we really need to be focusing on who who are the type of people that we want to be working with? What are those types of projects? And then we need to start to get into much more level of detail as to what that looks like and what those clients are looking for, are literally wanting from a resource like yourself. So when you're just throwing everything and anything out there that comes to mind and nothing's really working, you just don't know what to do next. You're sort of, at a stopping point, you're stuck. It's just like, where do I go from here? And when we focus on the right areas, so where these clients and these projects are, now you know where to spend your time, where to spend your efforts. You're not scattered and overwhelmed and frazzled and crazed as to trying to figure out what's working and keep changing directions. That's the other thing is that patience is a virtue. And I know it's super hard, but we can't keep changing direction. We have to be testing and looking and putting some concerted effort into a type of person and where they are. And we have to give it time. We have to give time to those seeds to be planted and then to germinate. But when you become very clear on who it is and where they are, it's so freeing because you have such good clarity of what you should be doing next, what you should be doing in your spare time when you're marketing and you have that time to market so that you can grow those quality leads in your business. So in the Luxury Client Academy, we're going to be taking the information that we have discovered and put together about your ideal client that is perfect for your business, and then apply it to being in the right places. And this is going to allow you to spend your precious time and efforts into a much greater payback. So, I want to tell you a story about a designer that I worked with who was trying to get some more small commercial fit outs. That was her specialty. And she was in the midst of doing several different things. One was she was doing some advertising. She was actively going to any and all networking meetings in her area, and she was working social media. So she had this three-pronged approach, and she was just trying everything. And she was so frustrated because she was like, nothing's working. Nothing's really happening. And I keep spending money and I don't know what to do now. And so she was literally at her wit's end when we started talking. And her and I dug into what she was doing and really interestingly enough, discovered that one avenue was by far the most successful for her. And the interesting thing was, she really had no idea. She hadn't thought about it. She hadn't realized it. And so she was doing all of this other work, spending all of this other money in areas that weren't working. And there actually was an area that was already really working. But because she was busy in working in her business, doing the things, trying to create, you know, projects and activity that she never had the time to really sit down and look at what might be working. And honestly, an outside perspective is so helpful here because we are in the midst of our own stuff. We are doing all the things. We're going from item to item in our business. And a lot of times we can't see the forest through the trees. So as her and I talked it through, it became very apparent what the avenue was that was most successful. And it was referrals from small commercial realtors, was incredibly successful. And literally, as we went through and started tracking her leads and all of that, it became very clear that this was the place for her to spend her time, her efforts, and her money. And once we uncovered that, we crafted a plan to go all in on this, into vetting and getting in touch with and getting with these realtors so that making the thought of working with her an absolute no-brainer to more of these sources. So once we started doing that, she was able to close several projects really very quickly after only a few meetings. And knowing who and how to spend her marketing time and her marketing money made it so much easier for her. So instead of doing a little bit here and a little bit there, spending some money advertising, going to chamber events, working on social media, she was really able to dive into this one specific area, get really good at it, and get great results. And this is what I want for you as well. And this is what we're going to be working on in the Luxury Client Academy. So we've talked a little bit about great leads and identifying great leads and finding great leads. So now the third piece of the puzzle is closing great leads, because there is no point in getting incredible, great opportunities if you can't take them across the finish line, if you can't close them. It doesn't help you to have all these awesome, the phone's ringing or people are contacting you if you can't actually close the jobs. And this does seem to be the hardest for most designers, and understandably so. It's really nothing that we've ever been taught. We've taught to be designers. We're taught for all those skills that we need. And there are a lot of skills in actually being a great designer, but we've never been taught how to do sales, how to do marketing. And quite honestly, it feels extremely unnatural to ask for a sale. It feels very uncomfortable. So many of us are introverts, and it just feels pushy to be asking for the sale. But I will tell you there's some good news. I teach you my simple techniques for closing these great clients, the ones that you want to work with, that's key, the ones that you want to work with 90% of the time. And this includes quite a bit of qualifying along that pre sale process. So, one of the mistakes that I'm seeing over and over again is that designers are really not spending enough time qualifying clients. They get so excited because somebody wants to work with them and maybe the project looks amazing, but they're not spending enough time getting to know the type of client that you would be working with and all of that. So this one of the mistakes I just see is that, we're not spending enough time qualifying. So many of you are qualifying a client simply from a website form because you may have a dollar budget amount in there, you may have a location in there. And while that can be a good first pass, I don't think that you should be qualifying clients simply on a website form only. The other thing that I'm seeing is so many of you are discounting opportunities just on a budget number alone. If they don't, fit into the budget that you're looking for someone to be in, it's an automatic disqualification. And again, to be honest with you, I think that's a mistake. Um, Clients just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And you're really not sure where they're coming up with that number until you have an opportunity to talk to them and ask them a few questions and find out where is that number coming from. And then aside from that, educating them as to what is a realistic number if they are working with you. And I think that this could also be an excellent way to open the door to be working with someone where you could offer to help them put a budget together if they do not know, and of course, charge them for that. But it's another way for you to get a little bit of income, for you to get to know them better, to see if you want to move forward, and to really uncover where they are at budget wise. So I definitely would make that suggestion as well. The other big mistake I see is that we're providing a price way too fast, just in terms of what our design fees are going to be, how much purchases are going to cost. Of course, we need to know that information. We need to qualify that during this process. But I think that many of you are doing it way too soon because you're doing it before the client is educated on the context of what that means, what that entails, how much time certain things take, the level of detail that's needed, maybe in a large scale renovation or a new home build. They just don't know. And rightfully so, they're not supposed to know. That is why they're going to be hiring you. So if you provide a price too fast before they understand what the reasoning is, they're not going to, they're not going to buy. And then the other thing is when we provide a price too fast before they have connected with you, before they feel that you're the one that can help them, I call that we need them to fall in love with you first. Then if you give them that price too soon, they can walk away without feeling like they've missed out on anything. And I want them to be falling in love with you. I want them to be thinking this is the person that can take us to a place where we could have never gone before. And that's why I want them to fall in love with you first. And the other thing is, you guys need to understand that you're actually selling a very emotional decision. First of all, it's a large purchase. There's a lot of money involved. And, we're basically asking clients with design fees alone to buy basically a car on very little time together. And I think that we need to be spending a little bit more time ahead of getting that signature to get them to fall in love, because we also know it is an emotional decision. This is an emotional decision, is to hire a designer, because you're selling the dream, right? So, since so many of us are detail people, we are working in details, and that is our business, right? Is to be in charge of all the details and making sure all the details are happening. We tend to rely on those details when we're selling our services. And I want you to be thinking more like a salesperson. So I want you to be thinking to yourself as you're working with a potential client to get a job. How are my services going to help them solve their problem? What is their real problem aside from we need to get this house done and we want it to be beautiful? What else is going on? So these are all like questions to be asking along the way. And then how can you relate what you're providing to the dream that this client is looking to achieve? So again, we got to be getting to the emotional heartstrings of what's really going on. What do they really need help with? And then how can you touch on those emotional points and tie them back into your services, what you're proposing to them, how you're structuring all of the information that you're providing them? Because we want these clients to feel like you are the only one that can get them there to their goals and beyond that to a result that they could have never imagined, that you are going to take them somewhere they couldn't even dreamed of going before. And now you've opened their eyes to where this could actually go. Because when they feel this way, they are much more inclined to pay what's needed to get them to that goal, because the outcome is what they are emotionally tied to. Not necessarily what we as designers know will create a successful project, like the organization and the details and the project management. We know that we can get them there, but how can we sell the dream to a potential client? That's what I want you to be thinking. And that's really the emotion and the process of sales. So if you want better leads that actually turn into clients, you need to be clear on who they are and where are they at? And then how can you get them to sign on the dotted line? Now, this is exactly what I work with you on in the Luxury Client Academy. You and I work together to create clarity and a plan around the types of luxury clients and projects that you want in your design business, wherever that's located in your area. And the goal is to triple your profits in the next 9 months of working together. And there's a couple bonuses that I'm including in the academy as well, which is a full business audit and the in-person Naples experience. All of this I actually detail out in episode 66. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I go into all the details of the Luxury Client Academy, what it includes, how much it costs. All those things are in episode 66. So you guys can go back and listen to that. And if you want the details of the program, between episode 66 and 67, it will go over all the details and the Naples experience. So make sure you check out those 2 episodes. And I want to invite you to apply to the Luxury Client Academy if what I've been talking about is piquing your interest and you really want help to triple your profits over the next 9 months. I encourage you, I invite you to apply to the Academy. The link to the application is going to be in the show notes. It only takes a few minutes. Don't be worried about it in any way. It's literally for me to get to know more about you and your business. And the application helps me determine if I can help you triple your profits in the next 9 months. So, of course, if you have any questions on any of the things that I've been talking about, you can email me, which my email is in the show notes, or you can find me on Instagram at Pam Durkin, and you can go ahead and message me there. I'd love to hear from you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks so much for joining me today and listening, and we will talk soon. Take care.